Dr. Pepper.
War Eagle War Report family, it's your co-host C-Dub, and tonight we have special guest Nathan King of 247 Sports on with us to discuss the latest surrounding the Auburn football program. So we got a great show in store for you guys tonight. Fellas, y'all ready to start talking some football?
Yeah, let's go.
You know it.
Well, guys, I hope y'all as ready as they are because we are entering the war room.
You are now listening to the War Report. Wednesday night War Room. Ike Jones. B. Will. C. Doe. Mike G. Let's go.
War Eagle, Auburn family, War Report family, we in here.
Yep.
Get on in this room, smash the like button.
Yeah.
Drop a War Eagle in the comments. If you're not Auburn family, drop your city. Let us know where you're from. We want to hear from each and every one of you guys. And do us a favor. You guys have been doing a great job of this. We appreciate it. Please be sure, guys, to share this video as you're watching along with us. If you're on Twitter, add us at the War Report. Use hashtags TWR War Room and hashtag Get Your Weight Up. You can also use that if you're on Facebook as well. We'll really appreciate it a bunch. Mike G, tomorrow is a special day, sir.
It is. Listen, Chop It Up with a Pro is tomorrow. We're bringing former Auburn quarterback Chris Todd on to chop up film with us. We're going to be looking at 8A film. Chris has joined us a few times now, so this is kind of a bonus for all of our insiders to get this extra Chop It Up. And we're going to take a look at how our quarterbacks did. If you have not seen one of these Chop It Ups, here's a sneak peek.
The fake is gonna bring that safety down, but that safety did a good job of recovering and picking up the over route.
What do you need to make sure that you're aware of in case something doesn't happen?
He's got to look back to the left.
Right.
Looking at the center's footwork, with whichever way the center's sliding, he's going to step with that foot first. But the center and the right guard have got to see that quicker.
When you have Tank leak out, Tank is gonna catch that ball every time they do it. This over route that they're running is gonna be open.
Woo! Listen, again, if you have not been in here with Chris Todd and Ike Jones chopping up film, you don't want to miss this. Become an insider to get access to that segment. $5.99 will get you there. You can join from our main YouTube page. If you are a supporter or not an insider, please don't send me any angry DMs about why you don't have access. Become an insider and you can get access to this. Other than that, we have a segment coming up with none other than Mr. Josh Pate from the Late Kick. Caesar and I ran a very interesting interview with him. It was informative, entertaining, and perspective changing. So Saturday, our insiders will get access to that, and for everybody else next week. Yeah, that's it. That's what we got coming so far.
Shout out to everyone in the comments. We appreciate you guys. Right now, I'm nominating Gregory Lawrence as host of the night right now. Let's see who can beat that. We got a few comedians in our comments, so I wouldn't doubt it. But right now, you hold the lead, brother War Eagle, to you.
Speaking of comedians, man, where's Uzi, man? Uzi ain't been through here in a minute, man. I need to put out an APB for Uzi, man. Did he hit the transfer portal?
I think it's
him and Elizabeth Carano. Where has she been?
Yeah,
they've been in the off season, man. It's the off season for them.
Right,
but anyway. Yeah, man, we got company with us. We have none other than Mr. Nathan King of 247 Sports. We appreciate you jumping on with us, man. And we appreciate what you do, man, covering the latest around the Auburn football program, keeping hungry fans like us who don't even realize it's an off season up to date on what's going on. So thanks to you, man, for what you do.
Appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate the kind words. Yeah, I'll look forward to the custom intro the next time because Chris got a pretty good one. I'll definitely tune into that. It got me pretty hyped.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, I spend a lot of time explaining to our listeners that we are not reporters. You are. And so we take a lot of stuff that you write and then create discussion around it. So I've been enjoying some of the things that you've been writing. You wrote kind of like a summary on the offseason the defensive line had that I found very informative. And so I'm looking forward to talking to you tonight about some of these portal things that's happening around the program. It seems like we got some culture things that are happening here that Harson's trying to get straight. So, yeah, I'm ready to jump into that.
For sure. Let's do it.
Yeah. Since we're already here, listen, unless you've been under a rock or completely disconnected from the program, we've had a few players hit the transfer portal, and it started with Jaren Handy last week. But since we discussed him, and it's funny, we released a video today for our insiders, facts or not, about that question that didn't even make it to tonight. So yes, we asked the question, how many guys basically will enter the transfer portal? And I was wrong in my estimation.
Yeah.
Because this is what has happened since then. We have had Jay Hardy, Chayil Garnett, and Chris Thompson to join Jaren Handy in the transfer portal. These guys, especially Thompson, Hardy, Handy, they were some highly rated recruits coming out of high school. Big gets for Auburn. I believe Thompson he was going to be a sophomore this year, played as a true freshman, was behind Smoke Monday, didn't get the starting job opposite of Smoke in the safety position. So he's gone off. He's entered the portal as a result. We know about Jay Hardy and Jaren Handy. They were held out of spring of the A-Day game, and there was some speculation around their standing with the program. And so we got our answers this week as a result of that. So just want to update you guys there on where we are. Listen, Nathan, is this growing pains or is this just pure pain? What's going on down on the plains, brother?
I don't know. I think it's probably pretty normal. I guess when you look around the state of the SEC, Auburn, college football, I think everyone's going through it right now. And I think the one-time transfer rule is really going to kind of bump this up. But not only that, I think kind of the stigma around transfers has been altered in the past few years. Transfers win national championships. Transfers go number one overall in the draft. Transfers are really, really good players. And so I think now just kind of the stigma of, a guy's only going somewhere else because he can't earn playing time has kind of been eliminated a little bit. I think I saw that the average in the SEC right now of transfers since the start of last season was like 11 or 12 players. And I don't know how many, I can't remember exactly how many Auburn had. Obviously guys like Mark Anthony Richards entered the portal like last season. So I think they're probably around that number. So honestly, I don't know about you guys. It was a bit of a shock to me that Handy, that one took so long. It was like 2 weeks after the end of practice. Harson, obviously, like you said, doing a little bit of the cleaning. And I think really what all that entails, I don't think it's anything too big of a deal. I think it's just, guys figure out where they stand after the spring and they have those honest conversations. If you're a guy like Chayil Garnett, you were splitting snaps with a couple of walk-ons at quarterback. Yeah. And that's no dig at him. That's just where he was at. And so that one probably was the least surprising to me. But a lot of people kind of pushing the panic button, I think, but really moving forward into the future, this is just kind of what college football and college basketball, that transfer portal is crazy too. That's just how things are right now. That's just kind of the y'all said culture, but I think that's kind of just the culture of the sport right now, guys wanting that extra chance. And we'll see how it affects the sport in the long run. But I think for Auburn, unless things get too crazy, things are pretty normal for them right now. I don't know if anybody, none of these guys are super impact players. They're good players, but none of them, are necessarily going to make a huge splash next season, I don't think.
You know, I was thinking, it seems like of all the things that we could accuse the last coach of, I think outside of offensive line, you know, his recruiting classes were pretty highly rated on average. And with the new portal rules, is it safe to say that the better you recruit, the more you might have this problem because everybody can't start?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And now you have kids have the opportunity to one-time transfer rule and not sit out. We might see more of this.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it's you're going to look at this recruiting class that they're bringing in right now, and you're probably not going to have all those guys here in just a few years. Yeah, you're exactly right. Because if you have a lower rated guy, he's going to want to come in and, he's going to understand that he's not immediately up at the top of the depth chart. But that's just how it works with these higher rated players. I mean, it doesn't make them, stuck up or anything like that. It's just, when you get told you're a 5-star your entire life, you're expecting to come in and play ball in the SEC immediately. So, and I think, 3 out of these 4 guys, everybody but Garnett, was a blue chip out of high school. So definitely not surprising that a lot of these guys are trying to move on just because I think the individual situations make a lot of sense. The Donovan Kaufman thing, at safety makes a lot of sense. I mean, Chris Thompson's that number 3 safety right now, and it's like you're going to try to find a number 3 safety, and you're Chris Thompson. You're saying, all right, you're basically trying to replace me. So it makes a lot of sense. But I mean, maybe another defensive lineman would make you a little concerned. That maybe a running back doing it would make you a little bit concerned. But right now, these positions I don't think are too big of a deal. But I do think it's going to keep continuing. I don't think 4 will be the max that we're going to get to. I don't know. What was y'all's guess that you were wrong on?
It was bad.
It was an over-under on 3, right?
Yeah.
Over-under on 3? Did anybody pick over?
I think B-Will.
B-Will.
Did you pick 3?
Holding strong.
I picked everybody who set out of A-Day. So I was waiting on Moultrie, honestly.
Yeah, Moultrie's the only person that he didn't nail on that, put it on the nose right so far.
Right.
And then I picked Shell like a month ago when we were.
Yeah, no, after A-Day, we were like, Garnett's
makes a lot of sense.
Right. Yeah. After they sent your boy Loy out there for a whole half, I was like,
just not talk about that guy anymore. I don't want to talk about that guy.
I like how you put your boy in front of Loy. Your boy Loy.
Yeah.
On that transfer portal entry, but I don't think we're gonna get it.
He already hit it once. So
should we have seen the writing on the wall, Nathan, after A-Day when Harsin was asked about the guys who were held out of the A-Day scrimmage? He led with they're still part of the program. I mean, I just thought they could have been injured or sick or something, but he
specifically said it wasn't injury though.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was hoping until he said that. I was hoping it was like injury or something like that. But he led with something that told you that there's something else going on.
It was a little strange, right? The way he kind of went about it. My thing was I think everything Harsin did this spring, just in terms of bringing in the new staff, in terms of implementing the new staff. I like how he focused on comfort and culture before he really beat him over the head with the playbooks. I really like everything he did this spring and everything he said to us. To me, after A-Day, that was really the only misstep, I think, of handling that situation with the players who were out. Because when he said, "All right, hey, don't make it anything bigger than it is," it's like, all right, well, now everybody's going to make it everything something bigger than it is because you said that. And I think he just could have shot. And look, Gus Malzahn was the worst example of this, doing that all the time. But I think if he had shot a little straighter and maybe said, okay, it's a combination of COVID issues or, guys have their own personal reasons for not being out there, but, they'll be back at practice as soon as but it was just kind of vague the way he went about it. And I think that kind of sent some people into a panic, but I know that I don't think all 6 of these guys are going to be in the portal. I know that there were some reasons that were not that big of a deal. I guess now some of them were not surprising when they eventually did enter their names, but those guys are definitely ones to keep a lookout on just because of this weird situation. Like I think Harsin just kind of acted like it was normal. He was like, "Oh, don't worry about it." But it's like, this is that's a scrimmage. That's the biggest scrimmage of the spring. For Moultrie is the second scrimmage that he missed. It's like,
right.
I mean, I know COVID is a thing, but that's not 6 players missing the spring game is any other year, you don't just ignore that. Like that's actually a big deal.
Can you say that again though? Can you say, because somehow the idea that the spring game doesn't matter has been floating around amongst a lot of people. And I'm like, at what point is especially in a time where they're limiting the amount of contact staff can have with players, is a full scrimmage not important? Like, I don't understand how that concept has become normalized. That
I think
spring
people
game doesn't matter.
confuse like the score doesn't matter, and like if your starting quarterback throws a couple interceptions, that doesn't matter. But like, the actual going out there, and I mean, you only get, like you said, you only get a handful of scrimmages in the spring, and you only get a handful of contact, and then the fact that it's the very last one. Normally that's that ends spring, but they had one more practice obviously because of the weather. But normally that's it. Guys are trying to get themselves in the best possible standing before the spring period ends, and you have those meetings with your coaches, and we're now seeing the results of those meetings.
Right.
No, very
So if you
very
very
important.
If you're Chayil Garnett and you're going out there and you get 45 seconds of playing time in the spring, I'm leaving. Like, that was my last chance to get real reps. And you basically told me, nah, we're good. We don't need to see any more.
We'll put in Sawyer Pate first. You're like, all right.
I'm out.
What did he do? Like, I'm trying to figure out what he did. Like, if you just watch these guys rep, no live bullets, just drills. You're throwing the ball. You're telling me that there has to be something that coaches see. And I know this has driven us crazy with people in the past. So we wanted to see more of Joey Gatewood when Bo wasn't playing so hot in 2019. We wanted to see more of Malik Willis when in 2018, when Stidham kind of was shaky behind that line. We never saw him. So is it something that the coaches see in practice that we don't see, or is it something else? Like for them to not get a shot, like Chayil Garnett, I don't think he had a chance. I don't, and I don't know if coaches see over 3 or 4 weeks of camp that says you don't even deserve second team reps.
Yeah, I mean, it was so much of this staff really did a clean slate, and I think that's really important. But at the same time, that's going to affect guys like Garnett. Like, I don't think they paid attention to whether Trey Lindsey is a walk-on, because when I think Grant Loy had like a pulled hamstring in that open practice, and D Davis was not wanting to worry about that kind of thing right then. Mike Bobo was like, all right, you're not going to run the offense right now. We're just going to focus on, getting the snap in your hands. Like, Trey Lindsey was the second team quarterback, and a lot of people freaked out about that at the time. But I really do think the staff was just not paying attention to whether a guy was a walk-on or a scholarship player. I will say that Chayil Garnett, like, he was a big Gus Malzahn take, like a really big Gus Malzahn guy. And Gus and quarterback development obviously don't marry very well. And I don't think two people could be more different in their offensive philosophies and their quarterback philosophies than, Mike Bobo and Brian Harsin together and Gus Malzahn. So you have a guy like that. I think, the writing was on the wall pretty early in camp, but I don't think it was, I think it was probably just the way he fit into the offense and them saying that, look, these walk-ons are playing a little bit better than you, and you'll probably have a better shot somewhere else. You can stay if you want, you're a scholarship player, but we're just letting you know at the end of spring, this is where you stand on the depth chart, and it's not very high.
Yeah. Is there a sentiment that this coaching staff is being very transparent with these kids and are telling them things that they probably haven't heard before?
Yes, goodness, yes. Like, I mean, I can't remember. I don't know if y'all read it at The Athletic, Nicole Auerbach story on the state of the program. They do the individual ones for all different programs, and she did Auburn's. And got to talk to Brian Harsin, and I can't remember the exact quote, but he said something to the effect of, and I don't think he was talking about the spring game. He was talking about culture, and he said something to the effect of, we just got to get guys to show up. Like, we'll have workouts, and 5 or 6 guys will be an hour late, and then 5 or 6 guys will never show up. You're just like, what? Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy to think about. But like you said, being transparent, that's not going to fly. And we've seen from afar, and we're about to see really up close once the season starts, that sort of no nonsense intensity of Brian Harsin. And it's not a mean sort of intensity at all. I'd really like the type of prowess that he brings in terms of how he delivers his coaching points to his players on the field and off the field. And I think it's really purposeful, I guess a little bit off topic, like him being so involved with his players on the field, giving handoffs to Tank Bigsby in practice, getting in there with the defensive line and working on the drills with them. I think he thinks you need to respect me, and I'm not going to get there just by yelling at you. You're going to respect me because I'm going to get up every morning and practice with you every single day. So like I've said this whole process, like I don't know if that's better or worse than Gus. Like we'll see. Wins are the only thing that matters.
Yeah,
right now,
it's better. It's better.
Most people, most people who wanted a culture change from Gus are, I think, I mean, I can't speak, but I think probably very satisfied with the way things look right now.
If getting guys to show up is a thing for the new coach, it's safe to say there were some things about the old culture that we needed to leave behind anyway, right? So, I mean, I was very taken back by that athletic article, right? Where, you know, again, essentially he's just saying, hey, man, we have good days and we have bad days. And on bad days, it's like 50-50 whether some guys will show up.
Yeah.
What?
It's crazy. That wasn't
insane,
that.
Right? And you know, if you're Brian Harsin, you're thinking, wait, when I took this Auburn job, right? What the hell did I get into? Right. Because I'm thinking, oh, you know, it's a tough place to coach, and they have high expectations, and you know, Gus had 8 years, and so you know now they're looking for somebody new. And then I take over a team, and we set a time for practice. And high-profile guys just don't show up.
Yeah,
so
I think
now you got to reset, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, now you have to send a message to everybody.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the blank slate.
Yeah,
I mean the fact that all these guys look. I don't care if you're if you're Tank Bigsby, you know, in my opinion, the best player on the team, you know, or you're the bottom of the roster. You know, you've got to be accountable, and I think that goes to show. Like, I mean, a lot of players, understandably so, were upset, past and former, when Gus was fired because they liked him so much as a person. And a lot of players really, really respected him. But at the same time, there were a lot of players that, you know, you're not happy when a coach gets fired, but didn't necessarily agree with what a lot of Gus Malzahn did. On the defensive side of the ball, he wasn't very involved. I mean, most of them looked at Kevin Steele as their head coach.
God.
So I mean, I think that like you're saying, I think that's going to show now some of the issues that might have been just swept under the rug, especially toward the end of the Gus tenure when he was a little more worried about getting fired every day. And I think that really started to seep in and kind of damage his coaching ability in 2020. I really do think that pressure started to mount on him.
Nathan, I want to go back to something I said last year when Bo got the starting job. And I you know, our show was less popular then. And so I have the distinct advantage that everything I say is on tape. So there are receipts for everything. So I'm going to pull one out of the bag here. I said that it really seemed like to me, Gus tied his future at Auburn to whether Bo Nix was going to turn into a championship quarterback or not. Right? I mean, you had a guy in Malik Willis. You essentially ran him off because he believed in his talent. Now, you know, JG Tate told us some things about, you know, that Malik said about he wished he had taken it more seriously and tried harder. But when I started to replay that, I'm like, I wonder how much of his mentality at the time was a byproduct of the culture and the program.
Yeah.
If Brian Harsin was his coach, would he have taken it more seriously?
Yeah, and I think for Malik, that shows right now.
Right.
With the strides that he's making. And didn't mean to cut you off, Mike, but I mean, I think you're 100% correct. I mean, Gus talked about it so much that Bo was going to win a championship. He's trying to just speak it into existence. And that's why could they have won more games with putting somebody else in? Look, I think they did very well his true freshman season, all things considered. You beat Oregon, you beat Alabama, but maybe could you have beaten LSU on the road if you put in Joey Gatewood? Could you have beaten Florida? Possibly, but Gus was looking ahead. He was thinking, if I damage this kid's psyche right now and I do not tell him, we're riding with you 100%, you're our quarterback, everybody on this team is behind you, then I'm possibly damaging a championship in the future. So whether that's the right, I don't know. I'm not a coach. I don't know. a lot of people thought that's the wrong decision, and
So-
that a kid can be benched and he'll be all right. I tend to lean
Right.
that, but
So contrast that with what's happening now, because I want to
Right.
talk more about what's happening now. Right now, Harsin is coming in, and he's telling guys, "I don't give a damn. Show up to practice, try your hardest, or sit."
Yep.
And we see a rash of guys jumping into the portal. And so what I want to do, I just want to take a little bit of time to calm fans down about these
For
portal
sure.
transfers, right? Like, listen, we know for a fact that player coach meetings happened last week
Right.
after A-Day, right? The coaches sat down with the players, and presumably everybody heard where they stand in terms of their journey to be a starter. And so now that you have this portal option, and there's a deadline on it.
It
Correct
was
me
this
if I'm wrong.
past Saturday.
Yeah,
Was
where
it
you
this
had,
past Saturday?
yeah, if you were going to go, you had to get in the portal last week,
Yeah.
right, by Saturday. So just because a guy gets in the portal doesn't mean that he cannot come back. So if you're going to test the waters, now's the time to do it. So there's that, right? So if you just heard this new coach doesn't see the same thing that the last coach saw, right? A-Day was a big deal because we didn't have a spring last year. And then some guys who sat out the entire season and didn't have a spring came back.
Right.
A-Day was a big deal for them. A-Day was a big deal for Chandler Wooten to get out there and run around and play football again.
Right.
So, we know they had player meetings last week, and I just think that the portal stuff is being way overblown. I think it's a mix of both, right? The culture shift, but then, again, it's just something that happens, right? Like when you look at the transfer numbers for schools in the SEC, you'd be surprised they're up there. I think the school that had the least amount of transfers last year, over the last couple of years, is Georgia, right? But Saban has a ton of guys transfer every year.
Yeah.
And I just really feel like the better you recruit, the more that's going to happen to you.
I mean, and people forget it's not as if we can't get guys out of the transfer portal as well. Like, it's not like it's just a one-way thing. Like,
They're coming
players
in.
leave and we don't
Right.
get an opportunity to get any talent that goes into the portal.
Right.
Like, people are leaving other programs. We're going to get a shot at some of those guys.
Mhm.
So, like, it's calm down. We're okay. Like, people leaving opens up availability for other people to come in. That's just
Right.
the bottom line of all of that.
Yeah, our
Right.
season isn't going to be any worse because of these guys that are getting in the portal, right? I'm a strong believer that our season is going to be what it's going to be next year.
And that's not speaking to the talent of anybody who
Right.
got into the transfer portal, right? Like, I don't know what those guys could develop into by the end of fall
Right.
camp, right? So that's not saying because they're inconsequential. Like, we got to stop this thing where we're calling people lazy or unwilling to compete or they're a bum anyway. Get them
Right.
like that whole mentality of you want to bash a guy because he leaves the program. We got to chill with that. Like, that
Wow.
is so unnecessary. And what do you think about anybody who transfers in then? Like, was he a bum on his team, so he's going to be inconsequential to Auburn?
Right.
Like,
No, he's great.
the whole
They love
mentality
him.
is
Yeah,
Right.
they love
Yeah.
him. No, he's fine.
Yeah, Drayshawn Miller is coming. He's
No,
an
he's
Auburn
good. He's
guy,
not, no, he's not
right?
lazy. He's fine.
Like, listen, I want to be clear. Jarrett Stidham was a Baylor guy.
right.
He was.
He wasn't an Auburn guy, man. He was a Baylor guy.
Right.
Yeah.
He got more development at Baylor than he did in his 2 years at Auburn.
Yep.
And then when he got to the league, what was circling around the talent circles there where we were surprised that Auburn didn't ruin him before he got there to the
They
NFL.
They tried really hard to do it.
Right. And so this is the part of the culture that Harsin has to change. Right. Offensively, Justin Ferguson posted something to Twitter the other day, and I think he was trying to stir the pot, and I just asked for some numbers.
Let's be clear. Let me clear. Justin Ferguson did not initiate this conversation.
Right.
Someone else pulled Ferguson into this, and he was just stating the research that he had done on numbers.
Right.
So,
Generally, he was saying draft numbers have gone up under Gus. Right.
yeah.
And I was just like, okay, so, but help me out here, Justin. The skill positions, right? Of all the skill positions still in the NFL that Gus can take credit for, they're like 4 guys, right? Jarrett Stidham, Kerryon Johnson, Peyton Barber, and CJ Uzomah.
Well, Darius Slayton, I guess you
Darius
could put him on
Slayton.
there.
Darius Slayton, right? Yeah, I was just like, and Stidham is not a meaningful contributor at this point.
Right.
No,
Use him.
If he's still on the Patriots roster by the time they start, I'm saying by the time they get to the 53-man roster, I doubt that he is still on their roster.
All right.
I doubt it.
I don't think anybody could argue that we did anything for tight ends at Auburn over the last 8 years. So use him. Just go ahead and mark him off the list for me.
TJ said KJ just got waived. Kerryon Johnson just got waived.
He just got waived. Yeah, I mean,
like
Kerryon got his shot, right? But he was that dude. You know, Peyton Barber was a starting back here. Darius Slayton arguably did it on his own.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm just thinking, I'm not sure how you're looking at that list of guys and saying, okay, you know, can he really take credit for the guys who went in defensively? He wasn't really, I mean, you just said it, Nathan, he was not involved defensively. So part of the culture that Harsin has to change, right, is that we need, you know, and I went on a very, very passionate rant about how we have to do better for players. We have to hold up our end of the bargain as an institution, right? To, you know, in exchange for a player's commitment, I'm going to give you your best chance to reach your athletic potential, right? On the field. And off the field, I'm going to give you a chance to not be limited by your athletic potential, meaning you're going to get an education while you do it. That's it. That's what the coaches owe to the players. You know, and I think that message, you know, however Harsin's delivering that message, you know, there's going to be some attrition. Man, listen, in Saban's first year, a ton of transfers, right? They processed a lot of guys out in year one and then went 7-6.
Louisiana Monroe.
Right? And lost to Louisiana Monroe, right? And we all know what happened the year after that. So, you know, if he's got to get this thing started off on the right foot, man, like, you know, I'm a big believer in the things that he's saying, at least. Right? I mean, he seems to get it. You know, it starts in the weight room. We're going to get strength and conditioning and nutrition correct. And, you know, if we're going to win championships, everything we do matters. That's a Harsin quote.
Right.
You know, which I think is great. So when they hit practice and they do the things that they're supposed to be doing, you know, I'm like, hey, you know, there's going to be some attrition here and it may result in a rough year one. Now, Nathan, I want to ask you something in particular about because we're talking, you know, development is a big, you know, theme on our show. We talk a lot about development and player development. And, you know, I think that's one of the reasons why we made a culture change. And we drink it. It's Cinco de Mayo. So if you're out there drinking tequila today, right? So I want to ask you about particularly about the quarterback position and what you've seen and what you've heard, because, you know, you made a statement that this staff started with a blank slate, right? Which it certainly did seem that way everywhere but the quarterback position. That didn't look like a blank slate to me, what we saw on A-Day. So it's become obvious that the plan is for Bo to start the season, right? But what is your feeling about the race behind Bo now post A-Day, right? What do we look like at the 2 and 3 deep at quarterback here in terms of what the staff is seeing?
Yeah, so they've only got 3 scholarship guys now. They're just Loy and D Davis behind Bo. I think D Davis made some really big strides this spring, and I think it was really kind of everything we expected from him. Like, right, really raw athlete who's able to do a lot of good. I mean, he shook Zacoby McClain out of his boots, and that's the leading tackler in college football last season. So I talked to his dad midway through spring camp, and he was talking about how the offense that he ran at North Shore in Houston was a little bit pro style, kind of this spread pro style thing. And so he has the most experience of anybody in that quarterback room taking under center snaps. And that's something Mike Bobo talked about early in spring was, you know, these guys are struggling. Like, this is not easy. They don't do this. I can't remember, you know, maybe he asked Bo about it, but he was like, I'd, you know, venture to say, but, you know, 1% of the snaps, less than 1% of the snaps Bo Nix has taken in his career have been under center. You know, guys just don't do that coming out of high school anymore, and they don't do it at the college level anymore. But so that was a slight advantage, something that he's able to kind of move up a little bit with. And then, I mean, just the intangibles that he showed in terms of his athleticism, but I thought he had a really nice arm at I think it was Malcolm Johnson. He completed 2 down the sideline. I mean, that prettiest ball of the day.
Yeah, best pass of the day. Yeah.
Bo to Elijah Canyon was a good throw too, but I think probably he's your guy by the time the season starts. Maybe Grant Loy still has that edge when fall camp starts, and maybe it's just something by Bobo saying, we're going to make you push for it. Demetrius Davis, we're going to make you, work for that number 2 spot. But they really do see this as a nice situation for the future. The fact that, because Bo Nix probably 2 more years, he's not going to turn pro after his junior year unless he has a Joe Burrow season. And so,
no, he's going to be the first pick in 2022, right?
Yeah.
According to Jordan Palmer.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I mean,
Okay, Mike.
Mind blown.
Basketball, yeah.
Listen, okay, so
We worked with Joe Burrow one time.
Right. So why do people seem so intent on putting all this pressure on Bo? Right. I thought that was part of the problem with what Gus did, talking about championships and putting all these expectations on this kid. Right. Now I was high on Demetrius Davis, and a bunch of people accused me of, you're putting all this pressure on this kid to come in and perform. I was like, listen, it's not impossible for a freshman to come in and do well his freshman year. But, the system around them has to support that, right? And the coaches have to have a good plan to ease him in. And we've seen dynamic freshmen come in our conference at quarterback and do well, right? But, for Bo, it just seems like at every turn, it was something that Gus started, and it is persisted with fans. This year's going to be the year. Bo's going to win the Heisman. And I'm like, stop. We don't need him to win the Heisman, though.
This is the year.
Yeah, right? Like, and there's no magical switch that flips in year 3 that suddenly makes a quarterback good. There's not, right? There are only the things you do consistently and the things that you don't. And what we hope is that Harsin will develop some consistency in some of the things that Bo has been inconsistent, and that will produce a more consistent result, which for me looks like mid 60s, mid to high 60s in terms of completion percentage, and better play on the road. That's it. That's all I'm looking for. If he's going to start, I think with the run game that we have, if he can just complete some passes downfield, if he can get, I'm not going to say marginally better because he's got to get a lot better throwing the ball beyond 10 yards. They put up a graphic up at A-Day. It was something like 36% on balls beyond 10 yards or something, over his first 2 years at Auburn. But if he can get better pushing the ball downfield, it's going to take some pressure off this line that everybody seems to think is all of Bo's problems, and off the run game, and give our running backs some space to go. So my next question to you is that this, how long, Nathan, do you think, based on what you saw, because I've been very impressed with, again, your take on the program based on what you heard the coaches say and what you've seen with your own eyes, right? How long into the season before the coaches pull the plug if Bo is not showing improvement or progression? And is that guy Davis, right? Because it seemed to me like the plan for A-Day was maybe they were planning on redshirting Demetrius, hoping that Bo could make it through the season and Loy would never play. I think A-Day showed us, your Loy is not the guy you're turning to if Bo was doing well and then maybe gets hurt.
Yeah.
Right. And you still want to salvage the season. I don't think Loy is the guy you're going to. So, again, what does the rope look like here? How short is the fuse?
It's long. I think it's a long fuse. I mean, I think Auburn's coaching staff came away from A-Day and said, D. Davis did some good things, and they again, I'll go back to those 2 walk-ons. I think that's a nice thing to have down there too. But I think A-Day for them, it showed that gap between Bo Nix and everybody else was actually pretty significant, because for everything D. Davis can do, I do not see him putting that together as a freshman in a game that is going to allow you to have a chance to win in the SEC. And we have seen Bo Nix do that. Mm-hmm. He's going to need to take that step, or else things are going to get. And like you said, it's like you can't just magically assume it's going to happen, because everyone thought last year, oh, I mean, he did some things as a freshman that are, kind of quirky and he'll get over it as sophomore. Nope. I mean, nothing really changed. And so it doesn't just magically happen when a quarterback gets older. I mean, Jarrett Stidham, right? Maybe we should have seen this coming because Jarrett Stidham completely regressed after 1 year. I think looking back at when Bo became the starter, that was like Trevor Lawrence had just won the national title. That was like this true freshman quarterback kind of craze. And everybody thought, okay, my guy's the next Trevor Lawrence. And just everything, you're exactly right. Everything that's been said about Bo in his career has done him no favors.
Yeah.
Everybody's saying that he's going to be the fact that he's a legacy, and the fact that he was a 5-star, that obviously doesn't help either because, like you said, it's just that pressure. But in terms of what you're exactly talking about, I think the leash is pretty long right now. I do think D. Davis will make that push to become the number 2 quarterback. And Grant Loy, I mean, I know you guys love talking about Grant Loy.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wish we could do an entire show about
we don't know who Grant Loy is. It's your boy Loy.
So, who's your boy Loy? Yeah,
your boy Loy. I mean, I felt bad for him. That was kind of not fair. He was like, his ex receiver was like Trent Mason, who I don't really know who that is, and he was going against.
I've never heard the name before.
Owen and Zacoby were just like crashing in on him every play, and he's got the second team offensive line. I was like, man, this is not fun for you. So maybe if he had Tank to hand off to, he'd look a little bit better. But no, I think right now, I mean, the thing about Bo that I came away from the spring.
Spoiler alert, he wouldn't have, but go ahead.
No, he probably wouldn't have. The thing with Bo, I think the leadership skills, everything, yada yada, the intangibles, all that stuff, Harsin can talk about ad nauseum, but the mechanics I thought were a little bit improved because our guy, Stat Tiger, who does a lot of good stuff at Auburn Undercover and inside the Auburn Tigers, lots of videos. He made 21 throws at A-Day. One of them was like off due to a penalty. He had 21 throws. 17 of them were on a platform, not on his back foot. 4 of them were off his back foot, but all 4 of those were on the run. So he didn't make any standing in the pocket, pushing it downfield off his back foot, which is what he's done before and just kind of drives you crazy as to what his teachings were at Auburn. But that Brian Harsin and Mike Bobo are looking at this kid and saying, you're 5-star for a reason. You've got a really nice arm if we can do something with it. And Bo's a great athlete. We saw that last year, really, really good athlete. So I think you're exactly right. They are not going to push him above what he needs to be pushed this season. Complete passes in the mid-60s, handed off to possibly the best running back in the SEC a bunch of times per game. Let this offensive line continue to develop and complete some deep balls. I mean, these young receivers they're not very experienced, and they've kind of taken their warts this spring. I do think they'll try to bring in a transfer at that position, but they're not going to push him too much to be a guy that he's not, because that's a lot of what Harsin talked about, is that's when bad things happen. Yeah. And Bo plays a lot of hero ball, and sometimes it's awesome. Sometimes he can make these plays and you're like, man, where did that guy come from?
Yeah.
But a lot of times that's where you get the bad mistakes that he's made over the course of his career. So really, I think they're just trying to keep him in his zone, improve on his fundamentals and mechanics, because that's one thing I know for a fact when this new staff came in and Bobo was in the first week of working in spring practice. They're like, who taught this guy to do that? Like, why was this not remedied, earlier? And that's a whole nother topic, going back to previous frustrations with the previous staff. But a lot of it is fundamentals right now.
We asked Chris Todd this question.
Yeah.
About we said, hey, what do you see when you look at this kid? Because he studied Bo quite a bit. And he said, listen, man, he is a 5-star talent. And he's got good feet, even if he doesn't use them well sometimes. Yeah. But, he works with kids, and he said that they don't do a lot with throwing motion because it's really difficult to change a guy's throwing motion. But the footwork is where they work most of the time. And he thinks that Bo was super fixable. And so I asked the question, well, if I can see it and you can see it and everybody who's watching them can see it and they're not fixing it, is that more coach or is that player? Chris declined to answer. He pleaded the fifth.
I think it's clear from A-Day, though. Like, it's clear from A-Day. They worked on his footwork. So, listen, it is what it is. Like, you can be mad at us for calling it out, but that doesn't make it wrong.
Yeah, it's more coach is what I'm hearing from you. than it is player, because like you said, 21 throws, 17 were on the platform. That's an improvement, regardless of the outcome of the throw.
Yeah,
that's an improvement, right? And so you want him to only rely on his athleticism when he has to.
Right.
Not unnecessarily, because in high school, he could out-athlete everybody. At this level, you cannot.
Right.
Like most freshmen.
Right, yeah.
Or people who have had a lot of success
A gifted
at last
few.
level. They
Yeah.
come in and they get it's culture shock. I mean, seriously. I mean, they talk about it in the league. It's another one when you go from college to the NFL.
I'll take this dare right here. Ask him what he saw good about Grant Loy. Here's the thing. I don't care what he saw good about Grant Loy. I can tell you everything I saw bad.
I knew you were going to say that.
Is the biggest Grant Loy fan in here. He's like, oh, but he looks good. He knows the playbook. Grant Loy looked like garbage. I don't care what uniform he wears, and he plays for Auburn. You can be mad at me for saying it. He overthrew everybody who he tried to throw the ball to. He looked shook in the pocket. I don't care who was supposed to be rushing against him. If that is a D1 defense on the other end of on the other side of the football that he's going to be playing against every Saturday in the SEC, he's going to look shook then. He looked terrible when he came into the game last year. He didn't look good at the school he transferred from at Bowling Green. He didn't look good on Saturday at the A-Day game. I don't care. Now, Nathan, you can say what you feel about it, but I personally think he's trash, and you can be mad at me. Hey,
his play is trash.
Whatever.
Yeah,
his
right,
play,
yeah.
his arm, his feet, his everything terrible.
Yeah,
it looked bad. I don't care.
My thing about Grant Loy was he was the center of the two of the funniest things that happened last season. Number one, during the South Carolina game, when Connis Miller was just tweeting through it, and fans were going crazy about Bo and the offense. And I think Connis Miller said, 14's the truth or something like that, like trying to say put Grant Loy in. And then stupidity funny. I guess this was a product of announcers not being at games, but the Ole Miss game was like the second quarter, and Bo was good that game. Like that was like his best road game of his career, so it's even funnier. But they were talking about John Rice Plumlee warming up for Matt Corral, because that's a thing that Ole Miss does. Mm-hmm. And I forget who was calling the game, but he said, I think I see Grant Loy warming up for Bo Nix. Like, no, you don't. No, you don't. You do not. I promise you do not see that. And why do we just say things? Why do you just say things like that? It's 100%. Every Auburn fan said,
hilarious.
No, you do. I promise you do not see that.
Oh my God.
I hope I do eat those words, Shank.
Appreciate Grant Loy for that.
Right. Yeah. There's a comment I want to get here too.
I knew you were going to come back to this.
Yeah, listen, I can't let this go. So here's the deal. If you've been listening to us, I am not behind Bo. So if that's what you're hearing, here's something different. That's not what this is about. Secondly, we've done O-linemen already.
Correct. That's the one thing that stuck out.
That was the first thing that
Chop
we
it up.
did.
Yeah, the first Chop It Up was all about O-line.
If you are not an insider, let me tell you how you can see us talk about O-linemen. Become an insider. $5.99 and go back and look at our first Chop It Up with King Dunlap. We did 2 Chop It Ups where King talked about O-linemen, and then we broke down film on the O-line, player for player, play by play. I mean, it was in depth. It was a really good Chop It Up. So some things in life are free. So you get my comments about Bo for free. You want to hear me talk about everybody else? You might have to become an insider to hear some of that commentary.
And so let's be clear, too. We make commentary on all of this stuff all the time. You can see it in the comments. If people in the comments are talking about right now because they watched it,
right.
And this one was a free one. This was anybody could have come and watched that Chop It Up. You can't rewatch it.
That's right. Yeah, you can't rewatch it, but that was free to everybody. So
and we eviscerated guys on the offensive line.
Yeah,
like it wasn't pretty at all.
As our platform grows, we suffer from the disadvantage of if you have just started watching us, and you don't have the advantage of having heard the things that we've said previously, weeks and months ago. I don't always go back and replay it for everybody, but like, listen, this is fair to all players, right? You know, the quarterback, again, as is in life and football, he gets a lot of attention. He gets a lot of praise when things go right, and a disproportionate amount of the blame when things go wrong.
Right.
That's part of the position. You get scrutinized more than any other position, right? What I want to see Bo do well, because I want to see us start a a process of actually consistently churning out quarter where we do not have to throw freshmen to the wolves, right? I mean, if he plays well the next 2 years, right? Because everyone's like, get behind him. I'm like, what have you been listening? I'm telling you guys are the ones who think getting behind him means say he's going to win the Heisman next year. No, right? That's the pressure that's hurting him. I'm saying what would be acceptable is mid-60s and good fundamentals. That's it. Help your own line out if you're the quarterback. Don't hold the ball too long. Stay in the pocket when they do, form a good pocket. We broke that down on film multiple times. The offensive line, kept a good pocket. The poor quarterback drifted into the pressure. He bailed too early. Help your O-line out a little bit.
Right.
Because they're already struggling.
Correct. And then the play calling didn't help either of them.
The
right.
Play calling
but
hurt
again,
all of it.
We
Right.
talked about all of this. We talked about the play calling specifically in the one with Devin.
Right.
I don't know that I could have been any harder on the play callers in the Devin Chop It Up, right?
Yeah.
So I
but when you do that, then everyone's gonna say you're not gonna old staff move on. Like,
but
it's always something. It's always gonna be something, guys. It's always gonna be something.
But my point is, all of the stuff that people say we never talk about, we have talked about in detail.
Yeah,
like spent an entire episode of a show talking about this one thing. You guys are getting a bunch of Lawrence Robinson just does not like Chad Morris, but you guys are getting
said something again.
Yeah, he just yeah. But you guys are getting a lot of just kind of reactionary takes to conversations that are happening out there in news feeds. But like a lot of that is about Bo Nix, and we're reacting to it. Like what? I don't know. I don't understand why you want our in-depth takes on every single thing, every single episode.
I'm gonna take this chance to give another one of our fellow Auburn creators a shout out. Nathan, I appreciate you coming on. We had another guy, his name is Chase H. Chase invited us on to his channel to do a segment about what a true Auburn fan is. And man, let me tell you, the comment section on this video was wild. I was watching, I watched it all unfold. And for those of you who ride or die with us, I appreciate it. But there's again, it was more of the same. Right, where we're essentially saying, real fans now, like we're making we're starting a new movement about true fans versus real fans, because a lot of people seem to think true fans never see anything negative, right? They're eternally optimistic and they see the sunshine through the clouds no matter what. And I can't subscribe to that. Some things just are what they are, right? So we had this segment with Chase, and we essentially said, hey, listen, man, you can be optimistic about your team and root for them and then still see poop for what it is. Poop.
Yeah.
Not good. Right. And so what we're hoping, the hope is, right, is that Harsin comes in, and I think that Gus being gone is the best thing that ever happened to Bo. Nathan, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like it's the best thing that ever happened to Bo.
To everybody.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, listen, man. I mean, you said it in your rant the other day. He wasn't doing him any favors. He wasn't doing Bo Nix any favors by putting what's the word I want to use? An inept play calling or game strategy together offensively, right? Putting him in front of a under-recruited offensive line.
Yeah.
Putting him in positions where he needed to be the savior consistently for a strategy that was poor. Like, you want him to be Superman in the midst of like the melting metropolis. Like, it ain't even, you're not giving him a shot, man. And then fans are mad at us because we're saying, you know what? There are like 4 plays in a game, right? Like legitimately 4 plays in the game where that was your shot right there, Bo. If you are the guy everybody says you're going to be,
you make that
those
play.
4 plays, you need to make those plays. And of course, they stand out more than everything else that happens in the game because those were the opportunities he had to do something. And it was like, man, we just needed that one right there. We needed those 2 to come out well. Yeah, it's going to stand out more.
Right. Yeah. You know what? Auburn Dad for Life, again, one of our more ardent supporters. I really appreciate him. This is what our show is about, right? Like, he is definitely a sunshine pumper. No offense, Auburn. He's a sunshine pumper, right? But we have drawn him over to the dark side a little bit in terms
the
of
dark
realism, right? Like, yeah, I'll say the dark side, right? Like he's come over and he's just like, you know what? Even though I sunshine pump, that statement is true. And as long as your sunshine pumping does not cause you to ignore truth and fact, I'm good.
Oh,
Right?
I definitely need to address this Derek Freeman comment here. But
Yeah. So anyway, I feel like, there was another, Nathan, let me tell you, we have some shocking moments here since we've been doing this. And one time, I don't want to say his name because I don't know if he'll be offended, but somebody was telling me something. It was something about Bo, and I said, "Hey, listen, man. No offense, but I think if you watch the tape, you would have a different opinion than what you just wrote." 2 days later, he comes back to that comment and says, "You know what? I actually did watch the tape, and you're right." And I was like, someone on the internet told me I was right. After previously thinking that I was wrong. Like, I went to go buy a lottery ticket that day. I did a lot of things that I just felt like, wow, okay, we got through to somebody. And some people who vehemently disagree with us, in the beginning, after listening, they're saying, okay, like these guys are not anti-Auburn. They're just, realistic about where we're at. So
let me ask Nathan a question relative to that though. Like, how much internet flack do you get from stuff that you write about articles? Like, what is your Twitter? Does your DM just like? Do you even have a DM that's open? Because you're just like, you know what?
I do, yeah.
Oh, how does
great
that?
Man.
Are your DMs in shambles on Twitter pretty often?
Not really. I don't do the whole. I used to be more, and I told myself in like college, I was like, I'll never be that guy that's like, I'm just not gonna look at my mentions. It's just not worth it. For most of the time, it's like it's not stories. It's like I try to stay so just newsy on Twitter. I'm like, this is why people follow me. I'm just here's the Auburn related stuff, and then after that, I'm gonna go
no opinions, just
play with my dog or something. Right. But it's right. The one time though that I want to say, hey, here's my opinion. It's not even nuclear or anything. I just have this slight opinion. It's just people go crazy. The Jalen Green thing was hilarious. That was probably the biggest I've ever been because I was like, no, he said he's going. He said at the time he was going to Memphis, and everyone was like, dude, he just said he's going to Auburn. I'm like, I'm gonna trust what he said the day of his commitment rather than this like revisionist history. And everyone's like, why do you even cover Auburn if you hate them so much? Like, oh my goodness, why? How did you like point A to point B? I don't understand how we got there.
0 to 100.
But yeah, it's not too bad. I really just try to. If people come in my DMs and just want to talk about things, like,
for sure.
hey, what did you see from this? That's fun. Like, I love to do that. Like Auburn Dad for Life says, like I hit Nathan and D. Yeah, we just talk on 24/7 sometimes, like about things. But if you're coming to my DMs immediately hot and I'm like, no. I'm sorry. I have way better things. You guys know way better things to do than
I got all the time.
Like no, Nathan. These two at the top right. Some of the pettiest guys.
Yeah,
some of the pettiest.
I am not petty.
It's fun sometimes.
You're not petty. No, you're not petty. You're not petty. Mike is.
I'm petty.
Mike is admittedly petty, but I'm not petty. I
just has time. I will give you the time of the day.
Yeah, I'll discuss with you, but as soon as it gets to a level where I can't go with you anymore, I might be a little condescending and I might be super dismissive, but like I'm not going to be petty. Yeah, it's just going to be like, oh, well, that's a really great point. Thank you for sharing that with me.
You know what's funny about this whole thing?
I'll read that and laugh because I actually hear you. I hear that when I read. Yeah.
What's funny here is
high pitched.
The most opinionated of the four of us is actually Brian, and he somehow dodges all of this. Right, like Brian, if you listen to Brian sometimes, Brian is like, I'm telling you, he's like a wizard with his criticism that he somehow dodges all of this vitriol, right? Like, so like I'll tell you, like I do have the time because that's part of doing it. And you know what? Kind of contrary to some other creators who put their opinions out there and then run, I don't hide from my opinions. Yeah. Just if you're gonna come at me, just come with facts and stats.
That's the only thing we ever ask. It's like, listen, I honestly don't have any problem with anybody challenging my opinion or saying something counter to my opinion. It's just that when I come back to you and say, okay, so, but actually factually, that's not true. Here are the facts of what you just said. And here are the facts of what I just said. Yours don't actually add up. So what do you have to say about this? And then all of a sudden the conversation changes. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. Like, but we weren't talking about that initially. Now, all of a sudden it's about this other thing. So Mike says it all the time, like the goalposts, all of a sudden it's like,
it keeps moving.
Yeah.
I had one guy tell me Bo Nix threw the ball away 5+ times a game on average last year. And I was like, that's nowhere near anywhere true. Like, you know, that's a stat that they keep, right? Like, we can verify that. You can't just say that and then we all believe it, right?
I mean, just on its face, that makes no sense. There were 10 games last year. If on average he threw the ball away 5 times, that is 50
throwaways. Yeah, there's no way that could be wrong. Yeah,
throwaways.
Right. And so then I said, hey, man, so like here are the stats on his throwaways. He actually didn't throw the ball away enough was his problem. Right, 4 was the most he had in any game, and over the last 5 or 6 games, he only had like 4 or 5 throwaways total. And he said, "Well, you know, you're missing all the." He started changing the definition for a throwaway. It was like the point, and I was just like, "Well, that's not a throwaway. So what are we talking about? Like, I don't understand." Now, you do stay pretty neutral, which is why I like reading your stuff, because if I'm just looking for information, it's very easy to go and read the stuff that you write, Nathan, and then just get information for us to, you know, talk about. And then people tell us that we're crazy, even though we're just literally repeating things that we read in your articles. So that being said, when you are analyzing the program and you're looking at everything that's happened this spring, you know, do you get a sense of whether, I want to say the administration, but people around Auburn feel like the first part of this Brian Harsin experiment is going well or not? Like, you know, does it seem like people are accepting this process, or are people still bitter that we didn't hire Kevin Steele?
I don't think. I mean, I haven't heard anyone say that second one. I mean,
I really wish Kevin Steele was here.
I don't talk to get Kevin Steele on. Come on. Oh, that'd be amazing. My goodness. He'd actually be really good. I mean, I don't talk to the 75-year-old boosters. They'd probably say they'd wanted Kevin Steele, but no, I mean, I think so. I think there were some like internal things anytime you talk about a culture change like that and such a big overhaul. I think there were some things at the beginning of it where people were kind of, you know, shocked a little bit, like some people on the inside were saying, and just in smaller designations and smaller staffers kind of saying, well, you know, he's different to work with in this way, and you know, these new coaches are kind of, you know, asking us to do things we've never done before. But I think when you talk about the culture shift started in the weight room, moving on to the field once spring ball finally came around, I really do think that from January until right now, I don't know how much better he could have done in any of these. So I do think a lot of it was a big success. And look, they were very purposeful with that. I mean, that was not a mistake when they showed those videos of him clapping some powder on his hands and getting in the weight room at 5 a.m. Like that
was amazing.
That was very purposeful by Auburn, saying, look, this is what you asked for. You asked to have a different kind of guy. We got you a completely different dude to coach your team. Here he is in action. So again, everything is going to depend on wins and losses. That's just how it goes. But in terms of what you do in the off, I mean, everybody in the spring is the off-season national champion, right? Everybody does amazing. Every player is great. Everybody's a breakout player, whatever. But in terms of, so that's why you have to go to the baseline and look at the culture, and you have to look at how your head coach is implementing things with his new coaching staff. I was pretty satisfied and really kind of impressed the most with how this coaching staff came together and how much cohesion there was. And to hear from guys about how they get together with Derek Mason and how they have these kind of intricate meetings about bouncing off of each other. And, well, if I share this player with your room, here's how we can cut. And it's like, you guys have only known, I mean, you guys have only been on the field a couple weeks. And I think that goes back to having a really experienced leader on defense in Derek Mason and a really experienced leader on offense in Mike Bobo, and obviously Brian Harsin kind of working together with him. So, yeah, I mean, a roundabout way to answer your question, I think most of it, probably 90 to 95%, has been a really, really big success in terms of what he says, because that's a lot of what the other reporters deal with. Again, the only misstep I thought was when he didn't shoot straighter on the players not being there. And maybe he'll learn from that. Maybe he'll say, well, a lot of rumors started because he didn't want rumors to swirl, right? People always, but it's like, well, if you just kind of knock it out, then the rumors won't. But again, that was the only thing. Everything else I thought was very, very purposeful and very well done by him. And I'm really excited to see how much he develops in terms of just his relationship with him and Auburn when fall camp rolls around, because he admitted, I don't know some of these players. I mean, you guys are asking me how Shedrick Jackson did at receiver and all this stuff. It's like, I mean, maybe I've watched him once or twice, but it's like, I don't know these guys. I don't know them very well. I'm excited for once he gets to fall camp. He knows every single player. He knows their skill sets. He knows their tendencies, for him to be able to dive into that a little further, because we already saw it improve from, say, the signing class press conference to what happened at the end of the spring. He already understood guys a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, let's go ahead and kind of tackle some of these fan questions while we still got you, Nathan. I want to shout out friend of the show, Mike Hicks, who I don't know if he's still watching, but you mentioned coaching. What are you hearing about receivers? And what are your thoughts on the coaching and as pertains to that position?
It was tough. It was really difficult this spring, because I think a lot of people thought, well, if Canyon and Javarius Johnson and Kobe Hudson, if they're getting all the snaps because of injuries, why aren't they improving? It's like, well, that's a lot of pressure to put on three very inexperienced guys, none of whom have proven themselves before. Really talented guys coming out of high school, but they haven't really done much on the field. For all the pressure to be put on them, and I mean, that was probably one of the weakest, if not the weakest link of the entire team in spring ball. That's why they're going to go after a transfer. Cornelius Williams, I think, is a great hire. I was kind of shocked a little bit. Like he was kind of an out of nowhere thing. We were looking at, some other guys who are more established, but you look at his pipeline in the state of Alabama recruiting. And I kind of did a bigger story on him, talking to Neil Brown, who was not only his coach at Troy when he was the receivers coach there, but back when he played wide receiver, Neil Brown was his receivers coach at Troy. And he said this guy's going to be an absolute superstar. You look at the way he's rising through the state of Alabama, but they need somebody to help them, probably. He's now amending the question, improvement in the coaching. Did you hear about that? I think it's probably, yeah, right. See what I do? See how I talk in circles? I think it's probably too soon to tell because I mean, for everything Cody Burns was and people's kind of criticisms, he had a lot of talent. And so it was kind of hard to mess up some of those guys sometimes. I mean, they were really good. I mean, Eli Stove.
He did a good job, though.
He did mostly. I mean, mostly those guys.
A good job of messing up talent is what I mean.
Oh, and I think
Caesar. I am a little petty. My bad.
Now, listen. How many shows have we been doing together?
Yeah.
My bad.
Cody's had a rough time on our show, but go ahead, Neither.
No, that I don't know if I've seen. They're not the same guys. It's not the same guys as last season. It's a brand new receiving core, and half of them were injured. So in terms of the improvement, I mean, Cornelius Williams did everything he can and he could have done, but yeah, they've worked with these kids for 5 minutes. It's too soon to evaluate. I would probably agree, especially in the receiver room, probably most at all the positions in the receiver room. We're going to learn a lot more about it in fall camp than we did in the spring.
Yeah. I mean, how hard is it going to be for Bo when your top three, this is why Bo gets a little bit of a reprieve for me while we're talking about receivers, when your top three receivers leave. And now you're working with a bunch of guys whose combined experience is not a lot in terms of gameplay. And I think there's some serious talent there. I'm real high on Malcolm Johnson. We heard a lot about Javarius during the spring. That didn't really translate to 8A. Kenyon, obviously Capers was hurt, so we didn't get to see him out there. But I don't think that there's no talent to work with there. I just think system and play calling have to help those guys out a lot, right? Route running has to improve. Everything has to improve for those guys, we talked about our last segment of all the positions on the field. Receiver is one of the toughest because of how much you don't control, right? In terms of production, you can run a perfect route, but if your line can't block, your quarterback can't get you the ball, right? Or if your quarterback is inaccurate, you don't get the ball, right? And I mean, there's just a lot there that's going on for receivers. So in the past, what we've been used to has been, you get limited opportunities to make an impact at receiver, but we've had great blocking receivers on our better teams over the last 10 years. And then when they get their chance to make an impact on the game, they don't miss. And then we started to have some misses. And it was very frustrating because these guys weren't as good blockers as what we had become accustomed to. Right? When you think about guys like Terrell Zachary and Darvin Adams, they were great receivers from Auburn, underrated in my book. Because they did a lot of blocking, but when you threw the ball their way, man, they caught it and they made some big catches that carried us to some really good seasons. And we've always had those guys over the years. And then guys like Ricardo Lewis get out of the system and then they kind of slam it a little bit saying, hey, man, Auburn didn't set me up for the next level. Even though he had NFL type talent, he never developed into the guy that he maybe could have been in a better system. And he certainly made his mark on the field at Auburn. So, coaching development is one of those things that it doesn't get talked about enough, right? Harsin still has to grow as a coach, so I'm giving him some slack there too, right? First year, Power 5 conference, he is making a lot of money, but we still have to, as fans, we have to give him some room to make some mistakes and learn how to be a better coach in this first season, which is why I don't think 9-3 and 10-2 are realistic expectations for fans for a first-year coach in the SEC, given the culture that he took over. 8-4 would be a great season in my book. 7-6 is still acceptable. I mean, he still gets a pass from me at 6-6 in my book. So, I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I just feel like, we can't measure how well he's doing by wins and losses in year one. Not in year one.
I mean,
I agree.
The product on the field is going to matter the most. Yeah. Bums don't make NFL teams.
Exactly.
I agree. We're talking about Ricardo.
Oh, okay.
Somebody said he was a bum who had a lucky catch, and somebody else said, "Hey,
I don't think he was a bum.
He got
a Georgia fan.
Yeah, I was about to say.
No, Ricardo wasn't a bum.
About to say that's harsh.
Yeah.
But no, I agree. I agree with you, Mike. Again, if anything, we should have learned with the last coaching staff that we can't really judge where this program is going off of the first season, right?
Yeah.
There's just going to be some things that you're going to have to look for that you can't really judge through the lens of wins and losses. Are these players buying in? Are they playing with confidence? Are we seeing improvement at the quarterback position? Are these receivers doing a better job of getting open and beating guys off the line of scrimmage and creating separation? Like, are these things that we were not seeing as consistently? Are we seeing that? Right. You know what I mean? Is the defense? Are we keeping them off the field? Like, those are things that frustrated us. As good as our defense was a few years ago, my goodness, they were on the field way too much. Are we protecting them now? Right? Are we winning the time of possession? Right. So those are things that I'm looking for. And again, we play in the SEC, man. We're in the toughest division in all of college football. Yeah. If Auburn gets better, then that means that we're getting better right along with LSU and Bama and A&M, because they got good coaches over there who are developing those kids just like we're trying to develop our own. So it's going to be
who has good coaches? Are you saying A&M has good coaches?
Oh, here we go, Jimothy.
Listen, man,
you just proved Mike's point right here, B. I'm glad you stepped up to say that. What you got to say? What you got to say about Jimothy?
I ain't got nothing to say, man. Let's talk about something else.
No, this is how he does it. This is how he does it. He always backs off. Listen, the SEC
wait till the season starts. He's gonna say plenty when we play Texas A&M.
Yeah, he's gonna take the mantle from me during the season. Listen,
his opinions are in the off season. Is what it is.
The SEC West got harder. What I saw Lane Kiffin do with Ole Miss and Matt Corral last year put me on notice. Kellen Mond got drafted guys. So I don't think we
Shock to
can
me.
ignore. I know it's a shock to you. Anything A&M did
I didn't
positive
believe
was a
in
shock to
Kellen
you.
Mond way before Jimothy got there. Let's not do that.
I'm just saying.
I ain't
And
gonna lie, I
he
thought
got
Kellen Mond was mid
drafted.
too, but he played decent his
And
senior
he got
season.
drafted.
Yeah,
He literally got drafted. I'm like, come on, man. Like the SEC West got harder. It's not getting easier.
For sure.
And I think too much was being made of LSU spring, man. I still think they're going to shock a lot of people this year. Bama is Bama, right? And then on the other side, right, of the conference, Georgia, Florida. I mean, come on, man. If you can't develop talent in this new age SEC, you're going to get left behind and it's the other reason why we have to give Harsin some rope is because it's not just about what you do. Everybody else around you is trying to get better as well too.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, let me get another question. Shout out Anthony Grant. Nathan, do you see Auburn picking up steam on the recruiting trail when the dead period is over? Because we need recruits on campus to see the planes. The virtual tour has not helped us at all. What are your thoughts about Auburn actually improving its standings, getting recruits on campus, and actually making some headway into this recruiting cycle? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a lot of push for that right now. You look at the offers picking up and the communication picking up. That's because of this June date coming up, June 1st, when everything's going to open back up for getting guys on campus for Auburn. Yeah, I mean, you see them pushing the virtual tour of the new facility so much on Twitter and just things like that. I mean, it's been difficult because Auburn thinks, and I think that's what Anthony's trying to relay here, is that Auburn thinks it has one of the best campus advantages in the country. Right. That's something Gus Malzahn talked about a lot. I think once Brian Harsin sees what it does to transfers who get here, he's going to talk about it a lot. Getting guys on campus for games is really big too. Seeing the atmosphere of a Jordan-Hare stadium that's actually full as opposed to one that's just kind of, diet Jordan-Hare like it was last season. Really, really big. I do think they're going to pick up some steam. I think Keith thinks that. Again, I defer everything to Keith because he's somebody asked this, is Keith the best recruiting guy in the business? My answer is 100%. Whoa, my goodness, 100% yes. So I just kind of defer everything to him and kind of what his opinions have been. But yeah, I mean, like you guys talked about before, there is a certain degree of processing that's happening right now of them wanting their kind of culture and their kind of guys in. And this recruiting class is extremely important for that. I mean, like you said, not to make the comparison and just say, oh, it's going to be a dynasty like Alabama, but like that first recruiting class for Saban after that season was extremely important because that is the one you're going to bring in those guys. And those were the guys that were juniors and seniors becoming NFL players when they were winning national championships. So, I mean, I think he did really good to salvage this last class. I think he caught way too much flack for that. I mean, they finished in the top 25, right? And maybe in the top 20. I mean, and then to snag a guy at the last minute like Dylan Brooks, they're not done in the transfer portal either. Donovan Kaufman, obviously, Drayshawn Miller was one of the best transfers out there too. So, but moving on to next season in that 2022 class, this summer they're going to put all their eggs in this basket, and this summer is going to be extremely important for them to take advantage of this. And they're excited though. I mean, they are so excited. I'm excited to head back up to that building. And they're excited to have people on campus again. I think they're going to knock off some rust, honestly, because they probably don't remember how to host a visitor on campus because they haven't had it in so long. But for sure, I do see Auburn picking up steam with that because that's when you're going to get guys coming to campus. And like we've been so used to for the past few years talking about, wow, I'd never seen it before. I felt at home. I felt like, I mean, how many times have we heard that with Auburn recruits? A million times. We're going to start feeling that again and seeing that again. Because it's just not possible with virtual visits. They did the best they could, and it's not impossible, but it was a really difficult curve for them.
Well, do you think a lot of it had to do with the fact that Harsin is still new to the SEC, and a lot of people aren't really familiar with him per se, or some of the coaches on his staff? You people know Mason, but Mason coached at a smaller school, so a lot of it is just getting FaceTime, which they haven't had the ability to get. Yeah,
I mean, a lot of these guys haven't met these people before, exactly like you said. And Brian Harsin, that's why he's leaning on them so much. That's why he's leaning on a guy like Derek Mason. That's why he's talked about having these former SEC guys, these former SEC coordinators on his staff, and how important that is. Sorry, I just saw that comment that Zach has been making. Yeah, Zach Etheridge is extremely important, as well as a guy, because you lost Tracy Rocker and you thought that was going to be another guy, and you were going to have this trio of Rocker and Cadillac and Zach Etheridge to be able to come in and say, this is how you win a championship at Auburn. This is how you play great at Auburn. And this is why I loved it so much at Auburn. Etheridge is really important in that too. But yeah, Harsin is not overstepping with these guys one bit. And he's saying, you know what you're doing. You know the SEC landscape. Teach me, because I'm coming in from a completely different environment. I was successful there on the field, but teach me how to get better on the recruiting trail. 100%. So he's gonna take a little bit of that back seat once the visits start to come again. But yes, 100%. Derek Mason was extremely important, and guys like that, Bobo, in that regard.
Yeah. I think show a clear path of development once you get to Auburn, and recruiting will get a lot easier for you as the season goes along. In terms of O-line, if he can fix this O-line, and develop these guys, I think a lot of people would agree that one of Gus's biggest failures was hiring Herb Hand as offensive line coach, right? So the guy that we have at offensive line, what's his name? Will Friend, right? Is going to play a really important role in recruiting this year if he can take this group of guys that have been much maligned and turn them in to a decent SEC bunch this season. Again, I can't stress enough, it's not going to be just measured in wins and losses, but if you can show development, and guys start to get noticed that might not have otherwise been noticed, by pro scouts and kids, because kids want to play, man. Kids want to go on to the NFL. They want to at least have the chance. I know it's a small percentage of kids who actually go do that, but if you're not at least providing those opportunities, recruiting gets really, really hard, guys. So I think that's what he has to do. He has to, everything Nathan's talking about just needs to translate into on-field development. And they need to look at and say, hey, if I go play for Brian Harsin, look what he did for Bo Nix that other guys couldn't. Look what he did for the O-line that other guys couldn't. Look what he did for these receivers that other guys couldn't.
Tight ends,
especially. We saw an emphasis on that on A-Day. And then recruiting gets a lot easier for you, right? Indeed. So to some extent, the results just have to be there, man. If you're a recruit, if I had an interview with Harsin, I would just ask him, like, listen, man, if you're in a recruit's home right now, why Auburn? What are you telling him? What are you selling him?
Right.
Why you? Right? Because players commit to coaches over institutions. Flat out. It's not really a commitment to Auburn. It's commitment to Brian Harsin and everybody that Brian Harsin has chosen to help develop the guys that come in.
Right.
That's why you see so many kids decommit when their coach takes another job.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's the person that they've chosen to guide them through what are the most developmental years of their life. So I really believe that. I think, Nathan, you hit the nail on the head, and the way that has to translate for recruiting has to be the theme has to be development. It just has to, and he seems to have a step-by-step approach to that. Let's get it in the weight room first. Let's get these guys eating right. Let's get guys to show up to damn practice on time. Let's create a culture. Yeah, where mediocre will no longer be tolerated. Mediocre effort will no longer be tolerated. Sometimes good will no longer be tolerated. And then hopefully after you've gone through all those steps, it just produces a more consistent product on the field that may or may not result in a championship, but it certainly will result in you not losing to South Carolina.
Right.
It may not get you a win versus Bama every year, but it should produce you not losing to people you have no business losing to. It'll get you a win versus Georgia every once in a while. So, I mean, I think that's where it's going to end. Yeah, at home, right. Yeah, I mean, come on. JG came on. He was like, man, it's just Georgia. Can we just get a win against Georgia? So just more consistent results. And then it'll get your name in the conversation every other year.
Agreed.
Yep. That should be the expectation for us this coming up year. Just be patient with the program, man. We'll get patient there.
For sure.
Yeah, indeed. Nathan, we appreciate you, man, coming on.
Thanks.
Mike G, let's take the people out with what we got coming up in the next few days, man.
Man, listen, I mentioned before, becoming insider. We're expanding our insider content. We're working hard to bring you guys even more content. So for those of you who are supporters, we definitely appreciate you. You've supported us in a number of ways. This is one. Also, our GoFundMe is live. If you want to support the content we do, we're bringing you more access. You can find this link in the About section of our YouTube channel, as well as our merchandise store. I love seeing the pictures of you guys wearing the merch on Facebook. Please keep that up. This is also a great way to support our content. And then chop it up with a pro Chris Todd. We are going to be breaking down QB play from A-Day with Chris Todd tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Isaac, Chris Todd, if you have not seen this segment, it is now exclusive to insiders. We gave you guys the first 4 free. And so you cannot go back and rewatch those now. But the film breakdowns are extremely educational. The one that we went through with Devin Aroma should do on wide receivers blew my mind. Devin, if you're watching, shout out to Devin Aroma should do for just taking the time to sit down with us and talk route running and play design. It really opened my eyes to a lot of things that need to improve here in the Harsin era. And then, we're going to circle back around to offensive line in coming segments because it's been such a big topic here. We've got some former offensive linemen turned pro that are going to come back on with us. We'll drop those names here in the near future. But we have a lot of friends of the show who have been willing to share knowledge with us so that we can all educate ourselves on the game, so that when we're reading Nathan's articles, we understand what we're reading. So again, I can't stress enough. You don't want to miss this. Chop it up with a pro tomorrow. Chris Todd, 9 p.m. Eastern, only at the War Report.
Appreciate that. Also, shout out Vernon. Appreciate you,
Vernon.
Man. Y'all please be sure to go over to his channel, Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. He puts out content on a regular, so be sure to check him out. He's a fellow content creator. He also was on a recent Facts or Not with us. That was a good time we had with him. So please be sure to check out Vernon. We see some of you guys still dropping questions. We're not at a point now where we can get to those, but if you would be patient and this actually gets posted, throw some of them questions back on there, man. We still chat with y'all in the comments even after the live show has ended, man. We still chop it up with you guys. You know how we do. For those of you who have been supporting with us, please be sure to share this video. If you are in the Twitterverse, please add us at the War Report. Use hashtags TWR War Room and hashtag Get Your Weight Up. Also, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to us on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter and IG again at The War Report. We are TW Report on TikTok. We are signing off, guys. For some of our subscribers and insiders specifically, we will see you guys tomorrow with Chris Todd. The others, we'll see you guys on Friday when we release Facts or Nah. Either way, it's always War Eagle.
War Eagle.
War Eagle.